Hey everyone, and welcome to our network. This is the Magical Miracle Network. And today we have a question for all of you. And the question is, what is grace? What is grace? And that is something that we're going to be talking today with Margaret Porter Daniel about. She is here with us. This is Monday, February the 12th, 2024, Valentine's Day week. And we're going to be talking about this idea of grace according to A Course in Miracles, giving a few practical examples, and then actually sharing a meditation of what grace looks like at the end of the video. We're going to go for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So Margaret Porter Daniel, welcome back as usual.
Hello, everybody. Hello, good to be back.
Yes, ma'am. Well, so grateful you're here to talk about this topic of what is grace. And so what I'd like to do is just sort of begin the discussion with you. You're looking, I think, at A Course in Miracles, right? I forget which lesson it's numbered.
Lesson 169, page 323 in the workbook. By grace I live, by grace I am released. Should I go ahead and read?
Sure, go ahead and read.
Okay. All right. Grace is an aspect of the love of God, which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. It is the world's most lofty aspiration, for it leads beyond the world entirely. It is past learning, yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. Grace becomes inevitable instantly, and those who have prepared a table where it can be gently laid and willingly received, an altar clean and holy for the gift. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. For grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. Grace is not learned. The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain, yet we prepare for grace, in that an open mind can hear the call to waken. It is not shut tight against God's voice. It has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home. That's the end of the third. That's beautiful.
It truly is beautiful. And so what I'd like to do is just sort of have an organic conversation right now just about how we can help people who watch this video understand from our words as we channel spirit, because that's what we're really doing. From our experiences and our words, what grace looks like as it's reflected in this world. So I thought we could just sort of do that together. We can just talk about the reflection of grace in just some practical examples.
Well, the thing that reading this was such a lovely treat for me, is that the mind has to be ready for grace. It has to be in a place where it can accept God's love. And because grace is acceptance of the love of God. And when the mind is ready to accept God's love, there's grace. But what does that mean? That's the big question. And there are moments in our lives when we just think, oh, how am I going to get through this? This is like crazy, or what are my solutions? How do I resolve this? And then all of a sudden something just happens and you go, oh, I'm not to worry. I can have peace about this. It'll be taken care of. That's grace.
Oh,
That's
I
the
love that.
easy. Yeah, that's the letting go, letting go of the worry, letting go of the fear, and just trusting. Receiving grace is an act of faith, you know?
Yeah, I have a quick example. I was struggling a little bit over the weekend with a couple of different things, and so a lot of times before I go to bed, and this is something our viewers can do, is if you have a problem, you can sort of put it into the hands of God or the Holy Spirit. And so I went to bed Saturday night, and I was having a problem. Just as sort of a general, we all have problems, right? So
Yeah.
we're never at a lack of problems. And so then in the morning when I woke up, I had the answer. And because I feel like what happened there, and you can help me, Margaret, is that I opened up my heart and mind, that I didn't really know the answer because I didn't. And then I was like, okay, I'll just wait. And then I had that faith, right? And then Sunday morning when I woke up, I had this beautiful answer that came as like a gift from God. And then I was able to use that gift in a way to just speak so clearly and lovingly to a friend of mine. And it really just was so beautiful. So I was so grateful that I was open to that. And that was, I think, a gift. And when I think of grace, I think of a gift.
But it's a gift we can keep on receiving, It doesn't have to stop with that one moment. It can be continuous. And I think about, when this experience happened for you, you were letting go. The ego was not in the solution process anymore. It was gone because there was no way to handle it or to see it or understand it through the ego. And you just let it go. And that allowed, the higher aspect of you to come in.
Yeah, so picking off of that, like with you in the last maybe couple of weeks or a couple of months or a couple of years, can you think of a time when you really felt like grace was involved in something, whether it be in your own personal life or somebody else's? We can sort of talk, sort of generally and generically, where you really, really saw that occurring.
There are a number of times when Grace stepped into my life, and I was so grateful for it. And really, when Grace is able to step into your life, it increases exponentially. In other words, it expands. It's not just this one moment, this little thought, and that's that. It opens you up so that you're even more receptive to it and more receptive to experiences that grant you that opportunity. Because everything we deal with in life, and we've had all our shares of huge challenges and extreme fears about things, and that's the opportunity for grace. And some of us plow through it with the ego, but then some of us remember, we go, oh, I don't have to solve this. Margaret, the personality, does not have to solve this. This belongs to something bigger. And then that just opens one up to another way of looking and receiving.
Yeah, it's opening and receiving. I think these are key words, everybody: opening and receiving.
Right.
And I think those are really great words to describe grace: opening and receiving.
Yeah.
Because we often say grace at the table, we're at the table, we say grace. And so we're open to
Right.
receiving the blessing of the food that we have. And that's something, a common place we think of grace as set at the table before a meal. But grace is working all the time. We're opening and receiving to the grace and the wisdom of God. Wow, that's very powerful. I love this lesson, number 169. It's really beautiful.
It
Really,
is. It's a very positive, uplifting lesson and so loving. Well, there's not a part in this book that isn't loving, but and the father's all right. There's an interesting sentence here in the fourth paragraph. But we have also said the mind determines when that time will be and has determined it. And this is the time, the statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son is one has been already set. In other words, the mind knows when the time has come for the atonement, for the at-one-ment. It knows when all has been undone, everything's been unraveled. There's nothing you can hold on to in this world that's worth anything. Nothing. And that includes people. But you love them, but you don't attach yourself. It's your identity and your well-being are not attached to them. And so the mind determines that moment when grace can enter. And and that's that goes back to that whole statement early on in A Course in Miracles, where it's all already happened. It's already happened. All we're doing is reviewing. We're remembering. We're reviewing the whole series of events.
Yeah.
And then that's the recognition that, oh, I'm not this body and I'm not this dream.
Absolutely. I like the way you explained all of that, for sure. The carpet of time rolled out and the carpet of time rolled back up, and we are just sort of mentally reviewing lovingly every image that's gone by, and we are letting go of the body identification in favor of spirit identification, which is grace. It's our natural form, and that's a beautiful thing to go for, in a sense, in this world. And grace is such a beautiful word. I love it. And I know we use it a lot, in our lives. And so opening and receiving. So before we close out today, what I'd like to do with you is we've given a few practical examples of grace. And
I did have one example.
Yeah, go for
this
it.
is a very specific example.
Sure, please do.
At some point in my history, in this body's history, my husband had a second automobile accident, and it was 6 years after the first. I think I already talked about it, but I remember just being so horrified, so depressed. It's like, here we go, we're starting all over again. And it was involved so much trauma and tending to, because he had to be cared for almost like he was your child. And here I had a little 6-year-old boy that I'm raising. And I remember just being so downtrodden, so deeply sad and upset. But the question in my mind was, what do I do? What do I do? Because it wasn't a question whether I was going to keep going. That was out of the picture. That had no concern or connection, because I had a child to raise. That's the gift of children. They take you outside of yourself. And I remember just so sad. And then this voice, and I'm in the grocery store and he's in the carriage, sitting in the seat in the carriage. And this voice comes to me, and I look up, and there's this beautiful Black man, just a lovely elderly Black man. And he looks at me and he says, if you put your heart in Jesus, everything will be okay. And I looked at him and I said, yes, you're right. You're right. And then immediately I said, Jesus, I need you. I need you to take this and help me and help me with this. And then it was like my heart just opened, and it was calmed, and it was peace. It was grace, because I knew there was something far beyond this ego, this body identity, that could step in and lead me through this. And I turned around to thank him. He was gone. He was nowhere. And that was just in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes.
I think that was Earth Angel.
Oh, I know. And I probably told this story already, but that to me is an example of grace, where you're just totally falling apart. You've given up, you just throw it out. It's like, I don't know what to do, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, something steps in, because you are no longer, personality, ego is no longer able to claim any ability, any strength or possibility whatsoever to solve the journey, to help solve the journey. It belongs to God. And so God takes it.
Well, that's a great example. I think it's one we can repeat over and over again on this channel. Is people really love practical examples, especially when they're going through a difficult time. And then something shows up, a person, thought, an idea, a revelation of some sort, and that's coming through God, through your open heart and mind. And so I love that. So before we and I really feel an energy right now. I'm just gonna be honest, as you were saying that and as we're talking, the energy in this transmission has shifted to a higher vibration. I really can feel that right now. So before we leave today, I know there's a very short prayer there at the end of lesson 169. Wow, such a powerful example. Would you mind just reading that to everybody? And
it's just a practice. It's
okay.
not a prayer.
Okay.
And it's a very easy one to remember. And I do encourage you to use it, folks that are watching. And I will use it. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. So not only are you released, but you release others. You release them from any bondage to whatever you're holding on to.
Absolutely. I love that. Margaret, thank you so much for bringing up that lesson today and having this discussion on what grace is. And I think we end out today, we can just really remind everybody that, grace is always there. It's always operating, right? And we just have to open up our minds to receive and our hearts to receive, and then it will flow and it'll be there. Especially I feel like in times when we really need it. We really, oh man, I've got this thing going on, and then here comes the grace of God through a person, place, or thing or situation.
Right. And don't forget, you can be an act of grace to others.
Yeah, we are giving grace to others. And sometimes giving grace is just holding space. Sometimes giving grace is just an arm around someone. Sometimes giving grace is, just letting go for a little while, and it can happen in all kinds of ways. All right. I love you, Margaret Porter Daniel. We are keeping these to 3 minutes. And I'm going to find that stop button, take off my glasses. Many of you all know I'm legally blind, but that's just this story in this lifetime. But my spiritual vision is way open, and I'm really feeling that more and more. So as I find the stop button here, I'll give you the last words.
Oh, just keep an open heart. Sometimes it's a big struggle, particularly when you're standing in front of somebody who's really, really getting on your nerves. just open that heart and see that person's divinity, and just let it relax. And next thing you know, that person either closes their mouth and walks away, or they change their attitude.
I love it. Thank you.